Alright, so for bowing, we're going to start with the very basics, the very intro beginner level, because this is a foundation that is really important for everything else that we're going to build. And this is what's going to help us keep our bowing nice and straight and steady and consistent. So there's two parts to this that I'm going to show each one and then combine them. This is all about, like I said, making your bowing nice and straight. And so before we get into playing, there's two parts of my arm. There's the lower half below the elbow and then above the elbow. And so it's going to be super important to be able to isolate both of those parts. So for example, I might put my fingers here in my elbow just to kind of just hold down that point just to help me consciously notice, just to kind of help me consciously isolate each movement. And so it's really important to first, before we even start doing any bowing, to just be able to move only the lower half of the arm or only the upper half. So the hinge points up here is going to be the shoulder joint, and then here the elbow joint. So those are two joints that we're kind of moving off of. So now when I take the bow, roughly half from the frog to roughly half, I'm going to be bowing just my upper arm. So we're going to start there. And what I want to do to begin the exercise, I'm going to focus just on isolating that arm and getting a nice straight bow. So we're going to do it on all strings. I'm not going to do every string for every exercise in this video, but just know that it's good to practice on every string. But maybe we'll do it for this one. So I start usually on D or A. Those are the strings I start on because those are a little easier, and then you can move to G and A. So if I begin, I'm going to isolate just my upper arm to begin, starting at the frog. And as you do that, as you get closer to the center, you'll kind of feel that eventually you'll get to where you can kind of feel that place where you feel like you're going to break your straight line. You can't go anymore without breaking the straight line of the bow. So then if I went to D, all the way over. Alright, so that is your isolation for the upper arm. Now, after I've mastered this, I don't want to focus on both at the same time. I want to focus on one half until I've mastered it, until I don't really have to think about it anymore, and I can see that it's moving nice, that this part of my arm is staying nice and still. If you have a mirror, it's really great to practice in a mirror, because then you can kind of watch. Like if I had a mirror here behind me or to my side, I could kind of watch. Or even just watch your arm while you're playing. So the next step would be isolating the lower arm. And so, same exact exercise, except now this is still, this is moving. And one thing that I mentioned earlier that really helps is to put my finger or fingers in my elbow, and that kind of helps me consciously think about moving just from that joint and keeping everything above it nice and still. So when we do that, that's going to be roughly half to the tip. And I usually start with an up bow for this one. etc. So you've got those two individual pieces and they're pretty solid, you can isolate each one and play it pretty well without having to think too hard. Then we're going to put them together. Now, there's going to be a transition point. You're going to be starting, say you start with a down bow, you're going to be starting with your upper arm bowing. Then at some point in the middle, you're going to transition to the lower arm. And a good rule of thumb, I don't like to make this like, this is exact, like be too exact about this. But a good rule of thumb is once you've drawn your lower arm out enough to where it makes roughly a square between your shoulder, this arm here, the bow, and the violin, when you've reached roughly a square, that is where you transition now to your lower arm. So I could start here with my upper, get to that square, and now I transition to the lower. And then back. And so that's your second or your third exercise. Just practice making that transition there, getting to the box shape, and then up or down, whatever direction you're going. Practice that, really making sure you're getting those isolations, and then over time it becomes nice and smooth, and you'll feel where that transition is supposed to happen. And so I would just say, just keep going, keep bowing faster and faster, until maybe roughly 140 beats per minute, or just a nice so you can get somewhere around that speed at the very least. That's probably about the fastest you can go getting a full bow before you have to start shortening things. So that was my little instruction there on upper arms, lower arm, and together. This creates just the shape, the isolations, and put them all together for the bowing. Next, of course, is going to be keeping the bow straight, and I'm going to be talking about that in the next video.